welcome to Setting the Bar, a podcast by Workbar. I'm Maddie, and I'm here with Sarah and Nico Varano.
Well, thank you guys for having me. Great introduction, by the way.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. Thanks for being here, Nico.
Oh, well, thank you guys for having me.
We have already been chatting for like 20 minutes, if we're telling the truth. And we're so excited to connect with you. It's such a great connection locally, but we want to hear all about what you have been doing with SweatHouz, and we want to talk about some other projects and maybe a Workbar partnership.
Well, I'm definitely excited about that last part. SweatHouz, if I know you guys haven't been to the studio yet, but it's basically a contrast therapy studio. So, you know, nowadays you open up Instagram, open up TikTok, you see people cold plunging, you see people talking about saunas. But the idea of contrast therapy actually was invented thousands and thousands of years ago when people would go from, a hot environment to a cold water environment and do cold water immersion therapy. This concept has been pretty big overseas for years, and what SweatHouz is doing is we're trying to bring a United States sort of more modern version of contrast therapy. So what we have at our studios are private contrast therapy suites that have an infrared sauna, a cold plunge, and a vitamin C shower in each suite.
Wow.
That is
How many suites
so
are in a
cool.
SweatHouz?
So it ranges from about 7 to 10, depending on the size of the space. In Burlington, we have 7 contrast therapy suites, and in Assembly Row, we have 9.
Wow. Really good areas, too. Assembly Row and Burlington. Those are super. I mean, I can just think of the demographics of people that live in those areas and how do you pick your locations?
So luckily for me and the other franchisees within the SweatHouz system is our net is so much wider than traditional fitness. So when I say that, you think traditional fitness, you got to be somewhat athletic if you're going to do an Orange Theory class. You have to be somewhat athletic if you're going to go do a Barry's class. SweatHouz, anybody can come to SweatHouz because we focus not only on physical health, but we also focus on mental health.
Yeah.
It's a 50-50 split. Not one is more important than the other. But I think right now in our country, mental health in the crisis that I think everybody's going through, something like SweatHouz is perfect. So to answer your question, the way I pick a location is I like to find other fitness concepts, but I also like to find other concepts that people visit daily, like a Starbucks, a Trader Joe's.
Workbar.
Or a Workbar. Because we want people to take 4% of their day, which is 1 hour, to themselves to dedicate to, SweatHouz and contrast therapy and feeling better, both physically and mentally.
Wow, that is such a great concept. And we talk about mental health a lot with what we do. Just like you said, with the mental health crisis going on, we think a lot about the mental health crisis of isolation and people working from home and trying to encourage people to come into a Workbar and not sit at home on Zooms all day.
Yep.
And I can just see sort of the perfect world where maybe somebody comes to a Workbar, but in the morning they had done a cold plunge. They went to SweatHouz or sort of at lunch or in the afternoon. We had a member in Quincy who asked us to try to get a cold plunge.
Yes, we
did. Who was that member, Maddie?
That member was Mr. Gordy Gronkowski with Gronk Fitness, wanted to put a Gronk Fitness cold plunge in his office, and we were here for it.
We were here for it.
But,
we tried to get it through the landlord.
But our landlord was a little like, are you crazy?
Right.
And we were like, well.
The good news is June/July will be opening up in Hingham at the Shipyard. Right next to the new Club Pilates in the Orange Theory right there, which is very close to Quincy.
I live down there too.
Oh,
yeah, I live in Hingham, so
ding, ding, ding.
I can be your ambassador down there.
Perfect.
I can join Kevin Cooney, and we can be the face of SweatHouz in Hingham.
/ Workbar.
Yeah.
So
don't forget about us.
So Kevin Cooney, obviously, I'm a big fan of his. Also, call him a dear friend. He actually starts most of his days off at SweatHouz.
What time do you guys open? What time do people go there in the morning?
Yeah, so we open our doors at 6 a.m.
At 6 a.m.
And we're open all the way till 8 p.m. at night.
Oh, wow.
And when I tell you that every session is pretty much booked, I mean every session is booked.
Wow.
We have people who come religiously every weekday morning at 6 a.m. before they go to work, and they're booking out those appointments weeks in advance because they know they want that slot.
Yeah.
So Kevin, for example, I think about 3 to 5 days a week, he'll come in for the 6 a.m. sweat or 6 a.m. plunge. Sometimes he'll actually do a plunge, then go to the gym, then come back for his sweat. But
dedication.
Some days he's just doing it all in one bang.
Wow.
It's pretty awesome.
That is so awesome.
Well, he has to get the energy for the video somewhere.
Well, I mean, right. You see people of all ages, of all athletic abilities, of coming into SweatHouz.
Yeah. So, for example, at the studio yesterday, we started our day off. We had people who were like the pre-work crowd. So they were there before work, some athletic, some non-athletic.
Yeah.
Then later in the day, during that midday, we had some retirees who were trying to find things to fill up their day while also fighting, anti-aging and wanting to, prolong their life as long as possible.
Yep.
Then in the evening, we see couples, we see, mother-daughter, father-son. It is truly... The net, I can't speak enough about how wide the net is for SweatHouz.
Yeah, when I think about sort of the wellness and mental health, when you combine those, the market cap is just, I can't even imagine the opportunity that you're facing, especially, we're in Massachusetts, so giving a shout out to Boston and people really being self-aware of their mental health and being aware of their overall lifespan and how that must drive your need to want to open up so many SweatHouzes.
Yeah, well, my overarching goal is, driving in Boston, as I mentioned, late today, a lot of traffic.
Right.
What happens in traffic is people get upset.
Yeah.
And I think mass holes in general, and I can say this because I'm one. When we get road rage, it's very clear. My overarching goal is to leverage SweatHouz to help cure road rage in the state of Massachusetts.
Ooh,
that is a wonderful mission.
We'll see how that goes.
Yes.
I love that.
I support that mission because not only do I get road rage, but I witness road rage quite often driving from the South Shore, going to work bars all over Boston, and we're opening up in Worcester, which I can only imagine the road rage I'm going to get driving
all the
from
way.
Hingham to Worcester. So if you could start opening up SweatHouzes, it sounds like you're on the right path. Where Workbar is, I feel like we could have a nice
or just like along our
organic
commute
or
routes.
along the commute, so we can stop in for a quick cold plunge.
And it also works with your clientele because, as I think about it, people need that break in the day.
They do.
They need something to do to break up the day, so they don't feel like they're just chained to their desk. I know you guys offer a lot of amenities at your at your spaces, so I think it's truly incredible what you guys are building.
Thank you.
That's so nice of you to say. Yeah, we talk about that so much with how we design our spaces. They're designed so that people don't just sit in one spot all day, so that they can get up, walk around, go to the cafe, work in one neighborhood in the morning, work in a different one in the afternoon, and it does make a huge difference.
It does.
And especially after we've been in the house for so long. It's so nice to see people getting back to it. And I think SweatHouz is cool too, because it's like a cool point of entry for physical and mental health and wellness. People who are not athletic or are nervous to go to some of those classes like Barry's, myself included, can go and feel like they're doing something for themselves, focusing on their health without kind of that like intimidation factor, I think is cool.
And I maybe failed to mention this earlier, but every suite is private. So every suite, that's your private space for the next hour. If you want to bring a guest, you can. You don't have to.
Cool.
But that space is yours. So, we shut that door. You have a TV in your room. You can play music through the sauna. You can play music as you're in the cold plunge. I highly recommend, if you're a first-time cold plunger, always play your favorite song because it helps you last longer in the cold plunge.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it is your space. To totally disconnect, we highly recommend, do not bring your phone in the sauna. Try to treat this hour as your personal treat for yourself, because I think that's what everybody needs.
Yeah. It sounds like a sort of seamless, probably easier way to like gateway into health and wellness.
Yeah. I agree.
That's not intimidating. That's very welcoming. That's just an overall really good experience.
And the benefits you see from coming to a SweatHouz and using the sauna and the cold plunge, the reduction in inflammation is key. That's number one.
Right?
So it reduces all the inflammation in your body when you do both the sauna and the cold plunge. And what that does is it prevents diseases. It also prevents aging. The mental health benefits also allow you to sort of clearly think, because when you get into that cold plunge, you kind of have that the flight or fight response.
Right.
And if you fight through it, it's been proven in studies that you actually start to think clear.
Wow.
We should require
Sign
everybody
me
at Workbar to cold plunge in the morning.
Yeah. Before you come in, please jump into our cold plunge.
Go to SweatHouz.
Yeah. What made you decide to get into this side of things?
So I was working in finance after graduating college, and really
BC
enjoyed
alum.
it. Yes, BC.
Yep, BC alum.
Represent Chestnut
Shout
Hill.
out.
We're opening up in Chestnut Hill because I went to BC.
Good.
Yeah, so very excited about that one, and big Eagles fan. Hopefully we can have a good football season this upcoming year.
Crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Tommy, the quarterback, he's a SweatHouz fan. So,
good.
If he wins the Heisman, he's got to give SweatHouz a shout out.
Amen.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so after doing finance for a while, I was presenting at a conference that Jamie Weeks, who started SweatHouz, was also presenting at. And he was presenting on SweatHouz. This was March of 2022. And I was getting ready for a charity boxing match at the same time. And I had a couple pounds to shave off. So
you were going to be boxing?
Yeah, Haymakers for Hope. Just to give a plug here, Haymakers for Hope, it's the greatest charity event in Boston, in the country. They're doing them all throughout. It's basically raising money for cancer as training for a charity boxing match. And when I did it, it was at the House of Blues. Now it's at the MGM over at Fenway.
Very nice.
You fight in front of 8,000 to 10,000 people.
Wow.
And it's a real spectacle.
Wow. Did you win?
I did win.
Nice.
It was the coolest night ever. So as I'm watching Jamie present, he's talking about how, SweatHouz is going to start franchising. And at the time they had, I believe it was 12 studios throughout the country, 5 in Atlanta, a couple in the Carolinas, 1 out in Oregon, and a couple in Texas. And one in Boston. It just opened at Assembly Row.
Okay.
So as I'm listening to the presentation, one, I was intrigued by, this could definitely help me, recover from getting my head kicked in the sparring, and 2, make me think a little bit clearer, and 3, lose weight. So I went to try it, and I was blown away by the service. The other part of his presentation that really intrigued me was how simple the business model was. It's a service-based business, doesn't require a lot of labor. You definitely need a good team in the studio, but you don't need a lot of people. And you're changing people's lives, because if you have somebody who makes the dedication to come in 2 to 3 times a week, they're going to see a massive change in how they feel, think, and look, which always makes people happy.
Yeah.
So I decided, I wanted to go all in on SweatHouz. So I decided to sort of claim the whole state of Massachusetts with, right of first refusals on a couple other territories. And I took over the Assembly Row location in January 2023.
Wow.
Cool.
So it's a lot cooler than what I was doing in finance.
Yeah.
Sitting behind spreadsheets and PowerPoint slides all day. So
true.
Yeah.
I was so interested in your trajectory because I know you grew up in the restaurant industry.
Yep.
And we heard that you started working in restaurants at 12. And something that Strega and your family's group is known for is just the ultimate in hospitality. And that's what we try to be known for, even though people might not recognize us as such. We are a hospitality company, and it's the cornerstone of our business is just membership support. So how do you feel like growing up in that industry where hospitality is the number one thing kind of helped you as you started to grow your own business?
Yeah, well, my dad's my best friend. We talk about 700 times a day. And having the chance to grow up and watch sort of what he created based on the simple principle of never say no, and the customer always comes first. So if a customer comes in and they want, for example, Strega North End, we don't have an American coffee machine, but over 20 years we've been open now, almost 21, we've never said no to somebody who wanted American coffee. We would go to 7-Eleven and go get them a coffee. And that simple principle of just never saying no to a customer, to a client, whether it be at a restaurant or even something like a SweatHouz, you make somebody feel special. And when somebody feels special, they're going to come back, right? They could have the worst chicken parmesan ever, but if you made them feel special, guess what? They're still going to come back. And I think, to me, that's what I'm trying to bring in to the SweatHouz model of, we have members, we also have people who buy packs, but we want to make them feel special, right? Luckily, in SweatHouz, there's not a waiter, there's not a cook. It's literally, the service is being provided by equipment. So what we can do is when somebody comes in, make them feel special. Ask them about their day. Ask them about maybe something you learned about them last time. And if you can build that relationship, that's only going to increase the stickiness of the model, and they'll stay a member for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
That's such a nice way to look about it. When people start at Workbar, we have them read a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And a lot of it has to do with, creating moments that are special and providing that experience that it's more than just going above and beyond. It's like you said with coffee, going out and get coffee, even though you're never going to say no to a customer. We've always felt that starts, like the foundation of that starts with our community managers and with the employees. And how do you, and so I guess you do have equipment, but you have to obviously hire a couple hospitality people per SweatHouz. How do you create that type of culture within your organization? And how do you create it when you have a distributed workforce? Because I would imagine as you continue to open up these locations, your workforce is going to be distributed around the entire state.
Yeah, culture is by far the most important thing I think any business owner should focus on. And as we've built our culture at SweatHouz, most recently, I've brought on an operating partner who's, helping run the studios as I focus on sort of expansion. She kind of focuses on the day-to-day, make sure nothing falls through the cracks. And our first conversation was solely about culture. The culture that I wanted to instill in not only the Assembly Row studio, but the studios that we open. So getting to see Burlington, from the first day of construction to when we opened in the first month, you could see that culture kind of shine through. We were going out of our way to make special cold compresses, which is basically just a scented cold towel for people. We were opening up extra appointments for people if people needed time. And we were going out of our way to make our members feel special.
Sure.
Right.
And we've already started to reap some of the dividends of that because now people are bringing in their friends, they're recommending us to their families. And when you can instill a culture in people, that helps the employees feel part of something bigger.
Right.
And I think my first year in SweatHouz, I probably struggled with that a little bit because I was sort of throwing the culture at them. This is the culture I wanted.
Right.
And I think where I've spent probably the last 3 months is understanding, okay, what's the culture that we want to create as a team? How do I get it to be a little bit closer to what I want, but let's work collectively to get it there. And I've had more success the last 3 months than I've probably had the whole first year.
That's great. Yeah, when I think about hiring our community managers, I always think about I can teach anybody to use Salesforce, to use sort of all of our technology platforms, and to do any sort of back office tasks. But what you really can't teach somebody is kind of like you said, you can't teach people to smile or to say, oh, how was your day? Or welcome to Workbar, or greet people and make eye contact. That's very difficult to teach if it's not inherent in somebody's personality. So when we think about how we hire, it's always that it's got to be a face-to-face meeting. You have to figure out it's not sort of related to any sort of repeatable back office tasks. It's more about the shining of the personality.
Right.
So when you are hiring your team, how do you sort of, and I think Maddie said this before, test out like their hospitality chops?
Yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, I'd have them come work a shift at Strega or Nico.
Yeah,
but, can't do that. We will role play in interviews most of the time to kind of understand sort of, what is your experience level with, I'm coming in as a first-time intro. Walk me through SweatHouz. And sometimes it's tough in the first interview because some of the employees have never done SweatHouz before. So what we'll do is we'll have them do a sweat and plunge and then have them walk us through that sweat and plunge.
Oh, nice.
So, what was some of the feedback they got from their first session? If they can have a conversation about it and make eye contact and be personable, it typically means they'll be a good fit. The other thing I do, which is, I think a lot of industries this is helpful, is you go find the best talent from various places. So
you poach talent.
Other fitness concepts. Poaching's a strong word. But yes, you try to find people who have done this before at scale. Again, we're 2 studios in. We have a long way to go. But I'm trying to build a team now that when we get to 20, 40, 50 studios, those key people are still in the company, but at higher levels. And that's what I kind of try to preach.
Yeah.
That's so great. Well, that's how you came up. We talk about this a lot. You started out as a CM.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I was like, Nico did? Really?
Oh, yeah. Well,
I mean, I started pretty low on the totem pole, especially at the restaurants. I think, so actually my first job wasn't even with my dad because I didn't want to work for him. And we didn't think it would be a good idea at 12. So I worked at Limoncello. I worked at Limoncello for my Uncle Maurizio, which another great restaurant in the North End. And I was terrible. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I was spilling things, oil all over the place.
Were you really only 12?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I was flying in terms of the cash tips I was making. But yeah, so that was the first job at 12. And then as I got older, I started working for my dad more and more. But yeah, I started very low on the totem pole. So
I think it's so important. I mean, like, people talk about this all the time, that everybody should either have to work in a restaurant or on the floor at a retail store before they start their career, whatever it is.
Right.
Because those are the 2 environments where you're like really getting into the nitty gritty. I mean, people, for better or worse, good for career, bad for mental health, don't always treat restaurant employees very nicely. Same with retail employees. So you really learn that resilience, but also how to like turn around a bad situation, how to give somebody that experience. So even though you're like spilling their coffee, which is why I never worked at a restaurant, I went the retail route. It really makes you learn how to just be able to handle yourself in those situations and become a really good hospitality employee.
100%. I get asked a lot, what's the one piece of advice you would give to somebody young? The first answer I always give is, well, I don't know why you're asking me. I'm still figuring it out. But the second answer I give is your first job should push you to the limit, and so that you can learn what your limit is. So my first job out of school was working in finance in New York. And it was, 100+ hour weeks, doing things that I didn't know how to do, but you learn on the job and you just make it work. And that job pushed me to understand, what are my limits? Yeah. And if that's the limit, push yourself a little bit more. Find a new level. And now I feel that any job I've had since then, or any opportunity that I've had since then, I never get too stressed because if I figured that out, I can figure this out.
So true.
And that's the one piece of advice I give to people who are just graduating college and trying to figure out what they want to do. It's okay to not know what you want to do.
Right.
But whatever you do decide to do, push yourself to the absolute limit and then go a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people in early career or just like career advice in general are of two minds. It's like you don't, that is sort of in some ways kind of the old way of thinking that you like push yourself and stretch yourself mentally at work because there is so much more recognition around like burnout and what that can do to people long term. And really, they're kids. When you graduate college, you're still a kid.
Right.
And that is such a good way for kids to learn like work is hard. If you're doing your job well and you feel that accountability and you have stake in your job, you're going to feel that stress. And so knowing what you can push yourself to.
And it's probably even compounded more working for your father. My husband works in a generational business as well, and he works hand in hand with his dad every day. And I see that, and I do think it's so interesting how much you can learn from the generations that come before us and within that generational business, and then add the restaurant industry, layer that on top of it as one of the most sort of where you can really get such a strong work ethic. I think that it's really admirable to open up a new business and to continue trying to stretch your entrepreneurial spirit and energy out into this world.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And I take a lot of lessons from my dad. Obviously when I was younger, he opened the first restaurant in the North End. I was about 9. And I mean, we didn't see him, Tuesday through Sunday. Mondays were a little bit slower, so we saw him. Right. But just seeing the grind that he put himself through to grow from, one 50-person restaurant in the North End where there were, 120 other Italian restaurants to growing to the scale that he was at. And now, obviously seeing through a successful exit and now back to the North End and the casino businesses, I think seeing that work ethic encouraged me to kind of, he gave me an opportunity to be the first person in my family to go to college. I now need to pay him back by working that much harder.
Right.
Oh, I love that.
Right, I do too.
That's really awesome.
So I think you touched on this a little bit, but what is the growth plan with SweatHouz across Massachusetts?
Yeah, so right now we have 2 open. On February 19th, we opened up SweatHouz in Burlington.
1 mile away from Workbar, Burlington.
Yes. I'm going to become a regular.
Yes, please. Come in anytime you want. And that studio was actually the first fully contrast therapy studio for SweatHouz in the country. So our original model was you had sauna suites and cold plunge suites.
Interesting.
Our new model is every room has a sauna cold plunge shower in the room.
Wow.
So you kind of go in, you have 1 hour to yourself, and it's great from a client standpoint, but it's also great from an operating standpoint because you're not hall monitoring and switching people from plunge to sauna. So you drive a lot of operating leverage just from the change in the model alone. By June/July, we'll have 3 more open. So South Boston, which, really excited about for all the people down in Southie, Hingham down on the Shipyard, and then Chestnut Hill at the street.
No way.
Oh, wow, at the street. Yeah. Wow.
So the street is great. WS, is phenomenal what they do.
Yep.
I begged them for a space for a little bit, and they finally found space in their new development over in Chestnut Hill. So we'll be us and a couple really marquee brands such as Solid Core and Aloe Yoga,
nice.
which is obviously very exciting. It's a nice co-tenancy. And then following that, I'm actually looking at expanding into another territory. I can't speak about which territory it is, but it's a really, really big city in the country.
Nice.
So that should be next. And then we'll also hopefully be opening one up right across from Fenway Park.
I can. Wow.
That may or may not have an outdoor sauna and outdoor cold plunge area as well.
Wow.
Looking into Fenway Park.
That's
which would be,
very cool.
yes,
I
so
love
it's been
that.
How do you pick your locations?
Yeah, so I basically, there's been a couple that I've just driven around to areas
Right.
that I really love, and I know that our demographics there. So, South Boston, I was driving around, saw a sign that said, call Dodge Tucker if you want this space. Called him, and now he's one of my closest friends.
Oh,
and,
my gosh.
rented that space for him. I do work with a broker, at Avis and Young as well. So sometimes they send me locations for future studios. But I grew up in north of
Yes.
Boston. I know this area. I went to school here, so I kind of know sort of where the people kind of flow to.
Right.
And then you also look at what other retailers are doing. Where's Starbucks going?
Yes.
Where are the other fitness concepts going? Where's Solidcore going? Because that means that they either paid somebody to do research for them,
Yes.
or they did their own diligence to pick that location. So if it was
Yes.
good enough for them, guess what? It's going to be good enough for me.
Right. I had a theory a few years ago to follow around Orange Theory.
Yep.
Because I thought the same type of thing. Well, my clients typically are Orange Theory clients, and I could see some parallels between the spaces where we all opened up. So I can see that being
And that's a great strategy.
a good strategy.
We're right
Yeah.
next to an Orange Theory at Assembly Row.
Yep.
Jamie Weeks actually opened or owns that Orange Theory, who's the guy that started SweatHouz. So
Yeah.
the collaborations we can do, similar to what I'm sure a
Right.
Workbar can do.
Right.
We're doing pop-up events, and we're doing events even in Burlington with Stretch Lab right next to us, or Skin MD right around the corner of
Yeah.
VO Med Spa. If you can get into the community and become not only friends but partners with all the other businesses, it's mutually beneficial because their clients are going to be exposed to SweatHouz.
Yep.
Our clients are going to be exposed to them, and now we're cross-collaborating so that your business is doing better, my business is doing
Right.
better, and now people start to associate that I can go to both.
Yes.
Right.
And when you're in a membership-based business, it's very crucial to find people that think that way of, hey, I can have a membership here, but I can also have a membership here. Or maybe I'm going to have a membership at SweatHouz and I'm going to buy a pack somewhere else.
Right.
So it's been great to really get involved in the community. And I think, people talk about marketing nowadays, and, you have the Instagrams, you have the TikToks, you have all the videos. But if you're not out in the community doing events and doing that guerrilla-based marketing, I really think it's going to be hard to succeed in any business because
Right.
you have to connect with the community.
People can smell when you're not authentic.
Exactly.
They can sniff it out, and they really can, and we've noticed that as well. And our strategy has always been connecting with the communities that we operate in, because all of the neighbors are members, and we want people to bring their friends with them. We want people to come to work and experience more out of Workbar than just getting work done between 9 and 5.
Exactly.
And going above and beyond and having an experience at Workbar that they couldn't have at some other destination where they go and work every day. So,
And you mentioned
Yeah.
burnout, right?
Yes,
I think a lot of
yes.
people struggle with burnout because A, they may not be taking the time to take that 4% of the day, 1 hour, to themselves. But I also think it's not only on employees to, find ways to be less stressed. It's also on employers to also figure out a way, like, how can I make sure my employees aren't as stressed? So if you work at SweatHouz, you're supposed to cold plunge, sweat, do the whole contrast therapy at least 2 to 3 times a week. If you don't know what you're selling, it's very tough to sell anything.
For sure.
So it's kind of a double benefit. One, we get the benefit of they're be able to have conversations with clients about,
Right.
the benefits they're seeing, but also they're focused on their own mental health and physical health benefits.
Yeah, it's so great.
that's so great. That's
I
like
mean,
how we work out of our
yeah.
space the same way. We don't sit in sort of a private office anywhere. We sit and co-work among all of our members.
that's really cool.
For the same exact reason. So we can all experience what our members go through,
Right.
and so we can understand the product better.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's so helpful to know. I mean, we joke all the time about like being marketers and saying all the things like Workbar's the greatest for this and this, but we really are lucky because we get to like tell the truth, where sometimes marketing you don't get to do that. But we get to say like this is a real benefit you're going to get from working here because it's benefits we experience ourselves. So yeah, and then the Workbar communities are like little microcosms of the very thing you were talking about. Building that community, meeting other business owners. We talk a lot about the bump and connect, and you never know who you're going to run into at a Workbar. grabbing coffee in the cafe, and it's like, oh wow, we could have like a really great business relationship and a friendship outside of work.
I think in Boston and in Massachusetts in general, I think we're fortunate to, in my opinion, to have the smartest people in the world here.
I agree.
We
agree.
Leading doctors, we have amazing businesses, amazing technology, especially in Burlington. There's a whole community of people really focused in technology up there.
They call it the technology highway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate here to have
Right.
very smart clients as well as business owners who are our clients. I learn a lot of the feedback about SweatHouz from people who come in every day because I want them to tell me, hey, this sauna wasn't getting up to this temperature, or hey, the cold plunge didn't feel as cold today, or hey, have you thought about doing this, or have you thought about doing that? That's feedback that's so important as we go to open Studio 3, 4, 5.
It is.
So that we can incorporate that feedback into the design and feel of a SweatHouz.
Right.
I see so many similarities from our two businesses because it's the same when our members said, back in 2015, we'd love this cool, productive, dynamic workplace, but out in the suburbs. We listened to what they said, and we started opening Workbars out in the suburbs. When we talk about the design of our new locations or where we're thinking of going next, we are sitting next to our members day in and day out, and we're sort of getting feedback from them on what they like, what they don't like, and we will change our physical layout based off of their actual feedback. And I think it's so important to stay connected and close with the end users of what your service is, because they're the ones that can really give you that feedback that can drive the strategies and drive the business development of where you're going and what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to know your clients.
You
at the
have
end
to
of
know
the
your
day.
client.
And the better you know your clients, the more successful you'll be. I'm a big believer that if you're in anything just to make money, you're not going to be successful.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to take the time to understand the product or service you're offering. You have to love the product or service you're offering yourself, like you guys were actually working at a Workbar.
Right.
And then you have to make sure that you connect with your clients. If
Right.
you do those three things, the money will come.
It will come. It will follow.
But if you focus just on the money part, you're
Yeah.
gonna,
You're
you
gonna be
probably
in
end up
trouble.
Yeah.
doors closed pretty shortly.
I completely agree with you.
Very true.
Yeah.
Do you have any other projects going on right now outside of SweatHouz, or is that your primary focus?
SweatHouz is definitely the primary focus. I'm also pretty involved with corporate SweatHouz. I was fortunate enough to be added to the board of SweatHouz,
you.
which has been a lot of fun because they have a really great and amazing team. So getting to spend time with them sort of on, ideas and different ways of operating the studios has been absolutely awesome. The second priority is the family restaurant business, which I'm heavily involved in now, sort of in the background. And we're actually going to be launching in May or June a new concept called My Mother's Cutlets, which is going to be down in the North End. So everybody loves chicken cutlets.
Who doesn't
Yes.
love chicken
And
cutlets?
I don't know if I'm going to piss people off on this podcast, but nobody makes a better chicken cutlet than my mother.
I'm sure you are right.
So we had this idea to basically open up a place that's going to just be chicken cutlets and eggplant cutlets for vegetarians.
Yep.
Even though if you're a vegetarian, highly recommend trying the chicken cutlet. And the way it's going to work
delicious.
is it's basically going to be like an Italian Chipotle. So you pick your base, which will be
my
either
God.
a nice roll. You can get a bowl. You can get a salad. You pick your cutlet, so either chicken or eggplant. Then you pick your sauce. So we're going to have like a nice like type of vodka sauce, an Alfredo sauce, a regular tomato sauce, pesto.
Wow.
You pick your cheese, and then you pick your toppings. And hopefully it takes off. It's kind of
I think you're good.
so.
Kara and I wish we could have a camera on our friend Kara right now over here.
She did
Who's
light
like-
up.
She lit up.
We go to work bars based on what we want for lunch that day. So now I think we
100%.
might have to open a work bar at the North End.
Ooh, chicken cutlet.
Yeah, so
say
we're
less.
excited. We're excited about it. I told my mom it has to be her recipe, so she's going to teach the chefs how to make it.
Oh my gosh.
And again, just really chasing simple. I think I've realized
Yeah.
the simpler an idea is, the more success you'll likely have.
totally.
Yep.
The minute you start to complicate things, for example, SweatHouz, we only do contrast therapy. We're not doing IVs, we're not doing
Right.
cryo, we're not doing hyperbaric chamber therapy. And not to say that those businesses won't be successful because it's a lot of great ideas, but we just want to be experts in one thing rather than trying to do the cheesecake menu or trying to do a Chinese menu where you open it up and it's 19 pages long.
Yes, yes.
So we're excited. You guys will have to come down for the open.
Yes. Oh my
you
gosh.
will.
I have a couple of the Italian content creators coming from New York and Boston. which would be very fun. I think 2 of them are actually good friends with you guys, my friends Tommy and Chad.
Oh, yes.
You know Tommy and Chad.
Yep.
We love those guys.
Yep. So, I keep Kevin for SweatHouz.
Yeah.
Right.
He fits the mold.
Yes, yes.
He's also not Italian, so like, does he really get to say about cutlets?
Now Ashley, his wife, she's
That's
very
a different
Italian. Very close friend. She spends a lot of time at SweatHouz too. But her and I actually grew up together.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, her and my sister were best friends since like 2.
Oh, wow.
They
That's so
danced together.
cool.
So she has an opinion on the colors, and she'll also be taste testing the chicken.
I love
So
that.
that's why I love Boston too. It's such a small world.
It
Yes.
is.
It's such a small
crazy
world.
It's crazy how small Boston is. And again, it goes back to, I truly believe this is the best city in the world because we don't have movie stars. Like, our celebrities are athletes,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then also people in Boston who are just well known.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And if you can create a name for yourself in Boston, I always find it very impressive. We have somebody at the restaurants. His name's David Ludbury. He works at the restaurants, but he, in my opinion, is the #1 promoter of anything in the city of Boston.
Really?
So
Maybe we
when-
got to get him on this podcast.
Yes, he's amazing at what he does. He'd have a line outside of Workbar for you if you needed him to. He is that
good to
talented.
know.
And the reason I bring him up is because he could look at his job of, being one of the lead waiters at Strega and take it for what it is, right? I'm going to go in, I'm going to serve people their food, I'm going to give them a good experience. But the value in somebody like a David Ludbury is he's going to go above and beyond to make people feel special, but he's also going to get content for us at the restaurant. So when celebrities come in, they actually want to take pictures with them,
That's
which
so
is
funny. I love
crazy
that.
because, like, I know him as, like, David Ludbury. Like,
Right.
you're just a good guy, you know what I mean? So
Right.
it's... He's spectacular what he does, and it's a micro example of, finding good people to buy into the bigger picture.
Totally. I love that.
That's a really good story.
That is such a good story.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
a really
that.
good
Well,
story.
So many exciting things going on in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So I think I will be the ambassador for SweatHouz in Hingham.
Perfect.
Okay.
We're
I
in.
will be the
Okay.
ambassador for the chicken cutlet restaurant.
Right.
Perfect.
Keep me in cutlets and
Yes.
before we wrap up, I need to know, you probably have some great stories, but I want to hear your worst work story.
Oh,
Like
man.
the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened at work, or the craziest thing you've ever witnessed at one of the restaurants or SweatHouz.
Yeah, I think probably most embarrassing or most memorable story was my first job out of college was at Bank of America Merrill Lynch in New York on their sort of consumer retail investment banking team. So, kind of long hours, and we were working on sort of my first pitch deck, and I probably hadn't slept in maybe 3 to 4 days. And my nose started bleeding as my boss is giving me comments. So he's like over my shoulder, and my nose just starts like bleeding all over my keyboard. So obviously in that industry, I think, drug use is probably pretty popular. I was not using drugs, but my boss was convinced that I had just done, a line in the bathroom. And I had to explain to him that was not the case. So that's one of the more memorable stories.
Wow.
Pretty brutal,
Yeah, that's
actually. You're like,
terrible.
I swear.
Yeah, but at SweatHouz specifically, I mean, probably won't bring up the possum story.
The possum story.
Well, yesterday was a unique example. There was where we are in Burlington. There's a nice parking lot and then like a nice grassy area.
Yeah.
And yesterday we had a client walking out, and the door kind of stayed propped open, and a possum ran right in.
Trying to cold plunge.
Yeah, trying to cold plunge, maybe trying out the sauna. Unfortunately, didn't end up buying anything. But we got it out. But it's just like little things like that.
Yeah.
That as a business owner operator, I think you're going to go through things like that may happen once a year, once a month.
Yes.
And you got to just figure out how to react and how to solve it.
Yeah. They turn into funny stories to tell
do.
Yes,
later
they do.
on in
Yesterday
life.
I was not laughing.
No,
but
you very
today,
rarely laugh when it's
In the
happening.
moment.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I was very upset at the possum community yesterday.
Yeah.
If you're listening, possum community,
Yeah.
stay out of SweatHouz.
No, and like they didn't even. He just left. Like animal control didn't even come. He just left. So I know he's going to come back. He's probably going to tell all his friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As they do.
So maybe we'll come up with like a possum rate.
Yeah, see what you can do for the possum community.
I love
I
it.
mean, we're an inclusive community. We accept
Yes.
everybody. So, yeah, we're a welcoming place for everybody. Maybe not possums at
Maybe
Work
not
Bar.
possums.
Yeah, yeah.
You never
But those
know.
are two good stories. Those are two good stories.
Well, if we had
Yeah.
if we had more time, I have tons of stories
yeah.
with my dad. Just him and I sometimes good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
I'm the good cop. He's a bad cop.
Right.
But
Right.
we get ourselves into some very interesting situations.
Yeah.
Him and I. So
That's going to be a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
I
Right?
know.
Like we're going to have
Him and
you
I could
back,
come on
Nico.
together.
Yeah. Oh, that would be
fun,
great. That would be
actually.
fun.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Well, we are certainly going to become members of SweatHouz.
Yes, absolutely.
And we are going to
Please
figure out a partnership with Workbar
sure.
and SweatHouz because I see so many good things for all of our members in your company.
100%, and
Yeah.
it sounds like you guys have already opened in a lot of markets that we want to
Yeah.
open in,
Yeah.
which I think will be great. And maybe I
Awesome.
can even make some informed real estate decisions for the next studios based on where you guys are located.
There you
I
go.
love
Pick
that.
Sarah's brain.
Yeah.
She knows what
Yes.
she's doing.
I love that. Thanks.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you guys for having me. I
Thanks,
wanted
Nico.
to quickly
We
give you
get
guys
presents too.
These are just some SweatHouz tote bags. They're great for when you come in. And
amazing.
then inside is
Wow.
some
Thank you.
Ego product, which is a new shampoo, body wash, and conditioner brand. Actually started by SweatHouz.
Oh my God. The packaging is
Product
beautiful
girly.
too.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
should we do like a quick unboxing?
And it's also basically made for women post sweat. So
okay.
it's special product, and this is where I get into one of the areas where I don't actually know what I'm talking
No,
about.
but you sound good,
Yeah,
Nico. Yeah, you
so
sound good.
highly recommend it. It smells fantastic.
Yeah.
And
It is good
all our
packaging.
showers are also
is.
vitamin C showers at
Okay, can
SweatHouz.
you just quickly, wow, this is great
Oh my God, these are
packaging.
beautiful.
Wait, can we like show this more?
Yeah, these are beautiful.
Look at that.
So the vitamin C shower, it's not like you're showering in Tropicana juice, but it's basically it's a vitamin C insert. It kills all the limescale bacteria in the pipes. So you get very, very clean and very, very soft water. Idea is when you sweat, your pores open,
Right.
And the vitamin C is good because it restores those essential vitamins in your skin, and you basically leave shining and feeling good. I think that's
Can I
how
get one of
Tom
those at
Brady
home?
stayed.
You know what I was just thinking? Can I open a SweatHouz in my house?
Yeah.
A lot of people
in my
are
shower?
doing it nowadays. If you have the space for it,
Yeah.
I mean, I highly recommend it. If not, just come by SweatHouz.
I was just going to
I
say,
know.
or you guys are making it so convenient.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. Let's be in as many communities as we need to, so we can be convenient.
Yes,
for folks.
That's awesome.
for everybody. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait
This
to
is
see
the
where
way
you
of
guys
life. I agree.
I
I'm
can't wait
excited
to
to
use
go.
this shampoo.
Yeah, same.
You guys need to
Same here.
come by, check out the studio, give me
will.
You're a
all the
mile away in
feedback.
Burlington from Workbar Burlington, so
And so, how many people are at Workbar Burlington?
probably close to capacity is about 300.
Okay.
So at any given time, between probably averaging 100, 175 a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we definitely need to come
So,
up with some
yeah.
type of partnership
Yeah,
because
let's
Definitely.
chat.
we also, we're seeing about 100 people on average a day.
Wow.
And we have, close to 300 monthly members. So to me, I think this is a perfect partnership
think so, too.
opportunity.
Same.
And a lot of them are people who kind of work from home now. So this
Right.
could be,
Right.
they
Get them
can't-
out of their house.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. I think it's great to think about. I think it's great for people's mental health and their overall well-being to think about, like the world where they go to SweatHouz in the morning and then they come to Workbar, or they're at Workbar and then they go to SweatHouz at lunch. Or I just think, like, what a wonderful world to live in where people are taking care of
Yeah.
themselves
It's so
and their
true.
mental health in that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's. I say this to my fiance all the time. I said, when I go to SweatHouz, I'm a much happier person.
Yes.
If I go multiple weeks without going to SweatHouz, not only do I feel it, everybody around me starts
Yeah.
to feel it.
You know what's interesting? I say the same thing about going to Workbar. My husband can tell when I don't go into work, like if I stay home and work for the day, and he's like, he can tell immediately when we start talking that I didn't go into Workbar
Yep.
for the day.
So
My energy is
interesting, yeah.
off. I feel like I didn't accomplish anything. So I agree. So when are you getting married?
Pivot.
Gabby and I will be getting married September 14th.
Wow.
In New York. That's where we met in New York
Cool.
City. She's special. She let me take on this SweatHouz journey. No questions asked. So
That's
awesome.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
That's exciting.
So
You have some good
exciting.
stuff coming up.
Yeah, that's probably it. You
Yeah.
asked me like what projects I'm working on. That's probably a big one, but I'm letting her handle all the planning.
Good.
Yeah,
Smart.
let her do it.
Smart.
So,
Yeah.
so I don't think about it as much.
Yeah.
But
Right.
September 14th, I'll be there.
Yeah, good. Show up.
In a
Nice.
tux, so
Yep.
that'll be good.
All right. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Well,
Just
gotta show up.
congratulations.
Well, thank
Very
you.
exciting. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much
Yeah,
for your
thank
time,
you.
Nico. It was so great to chat with you.
Well,
and
thank
we're
you guys
looking
for having
forward
me
to a
in.
future relationship.
Yes, and you guys have to come into SweatHouz. And
We
we'll
will.
see who
Done.
can last longer in the cold.
Oh,
plunge.
let's do that. Let's have a competition.
Content, baby. Let's do it.
All right, well, thank you guys again.
All right, thanks,
Thanks.
Nico.
Thank you.